Hello everyone, we are assigned to discuss Chapter 3 entitled Statute Law. For our learning objectives, at the end of this chapter, the student should be able to first, know what is statute law. Second, determine the quick guide to statutes, regulations, approved codes of practice, and guide notes. 3. Analyze the parliamentary process. 4. Explain the principal statutes in force before the health and safety at work. And last, distinguish the different acts on terms of work from 1960s up to 1990s. Statutes. One of the principal functions of Parliament is the enactment of statutes or acts of Parliament. Most statutes commence their lives as bills, and most government-introduced bills starts the parliamentary process in the House of Commons. The process in the House of Commons commences with the formal first reading. This is followed by a second reading, at which stage there is a discussion of the general principles and the bill's main purpose. Following the second reading, the bill goes to the committee stage for detailed consideration by an appointed committee comprising both members of Parliament and specialists. After due consideration, the committee reports back to the House with recommendations for amendments. Such amendments are considered by the House, and they, in turn, may make amendments at this stage and return the bill to the committee for further consideration. After this report stage, the bill receives third reading where only verbal alterations are made. The bill is then passed to the House of Lords where it goes through a similar process. The House of Lords either passes the bill or amends it. In the case of an amendment, it is returned to the House of Commons for further consideration. After a bill has been passed by both houses, it receives the royal assent, which is always granted, and then becomes an act of Parliament. Regulations. A statute generally confers power on a minister or secretary of state to make statutory instruments which may indicate more detailed rules or requirements for implementing the overall objectives of the statute. Most statutory instruments take the form of regulation and come within the area of law known as delegated or subordinated legislation. The HSWA is an enabling act. This means that in the case of health and safety regulations, the Secretary of State for Employment has powers conferred under the HSWA, Section 15, Schedule 3, and Section 80 to make regulations on a wide variety of issues, but within the general objectives and aims of the parent act. So the following are the examples of regulation made under the HSWA are the Electricity at Work Regulation 1989, Health and Safety Regulation 1981, Management of Health and Safety Work at Regulations 1992, and regulations may repeal or modify existing statutory provisions, exclude or modify the provisions of Sections 2 to 9 of the HSWA or existing provision in relation to any specified class, make a specified authority such as a local authority, responsible for enforcement. Impose approval requirements. Refer to specified documents to operate as references. Give exemptions. Specify the class of person who may be guilty of an offense, for example, the employers. And last, apply to a particular case only. The principal statutes in force before the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. Prior to the HSWA, the principal health and safety legislation was contained in the Factories Act 1961, the Offices, Shops, and Railway Premises Act of 1963, and the Mines and Quarries Act of 1954. Much of this legislation, including subjected to some form of heat treatment, or the other than annealing, approved by them, be annealed at least once every 14 months, or in the case of chains or slings of 1.5 centimeters bar or smaller, or chains used in connection with molten metals or molten slag, in every 6 months, except that change and lifting tackle not in regular use need to be annealed only when necessary or need to be heated. So a register containing the prescribed particulars should be kept in respect of all such chains, ropes, or lifting tackle, except fiber slings. By lifting tackle is meant chain slings, rope slings, rings, hooks, shackles, and swivels. So Section 27 stated that all such parts and gear shall be thoroughly examined by a competent person at least once in every period of 14 months, and the register should be kept containing the prescribed particulars of every such examination. And also, all rails on which a traveling crane moves and every track on which the carriage of a transporter or runway moves shall be of the proper size and adequate strength and have an even running surface. There shall be plainly marked on every lifting machine its safe working loads, except in the case of a jib crane, which is so constructed that the safe working load may be varied by the raising or lowering of the jib. So no lifting machine shall, except for the purpose of a test, no lifting machine shall be taken into use in any factory for the first time unless it has been tested and all such parts are working gear. If any person is employed or working on the near of the wheel track of an overheated traveling crane in any places where they would be liable to be struck by the crane, effective measures shall be taken by the warning drills, responsible person has tested and certified it as safe for entry without breathing apparatus. Section 30 stated dangerous fumes and lack of oxygen. So this section is principally concerned with the hazards that may exist in confined spaces and the precaution necessary, such as the operation of a permit to work a system. A confined space is defined as including any chamber, tank, vat, pit, pipe, flue, or similar confined space, and the following precaution must be taken. Where there is no adequate means or egress from the confined space, a manhole must be provided of a minimum size. A responsible person must certify that the space is safe to enter for a specified length of time without the need for breathing apparatus. Where the confined space is not certified as being safe, no one must enter or remain in the confined space unless they are wearing breathing apparatus, have authority to enter from a responsible person, and where practicable and wearing belts with a rope securely attached and the person keeping watch outside and capable of pulling them out is holding the free end of the rope. There must be a sufficient trained people to use breathing apparatus during the operation. There is provided and kept readily available a sufficient supply of approved breathing apparatus, of belts and ropes, and a suitable reviving apparatus and oxygen. And the apparatus, belts, and ropes shall be maintained and thoroughly examined at least once a month or at such other intervals as may be prescribed by a competent person, and a report of every such examination, signed by the person making the examination and containing the prescribed particulars, shall be kept available for inspection. A sufficient number of people employed shall be trained and practiced in the use of the apparatus mentioned above and in reviving those who have stopped breathing. No person shall enter or remain in any confined space in which the proportion of energy in the air is liable to have been substantially reduced unless either 1. They have wearing suitable breathing apparatus, or number 2. The space has been and remained adequately ventilated and a responsible person has tested and certified it as safe for entry without breathing apparatus. No work shall be permitted in any boiler furnace or boiler flue unless it has been sufficiently cooled by ventilation or otherwise to make work safe for the person employed. So Section 31, Precautions with respect to explosive or flammable dust, gas, vapor, or substance. Where, in connection with any grinding, sieving, or other process giving rise to dust, there may escape dust or such character and to such an extent as to be liable to explode on ignition, all practicable steps shall be taken to prevent such an explosion by enclosure of the plant used in the process, and by removal or prevention of accumulation of dust that may escape in spite of the enclosure, and by exclusion or effective enclosure of possible sources of ignition. So, wherein any part of the plant contains any explosive or inflammable gas or vapor under pressure greater than atmospheric pressure, the part shall not be opened except in accordance with the following provisions. Before the fastening of any joint or any pipe connected with a part of the plant or the fastening of the cover of any opening into the plant is loosened, any flow of the gas or vapor into the part or into any such pipe shall be effectively stopped by a stop valve or otherwise. Before any such fastening is removed, all applicable steps shall be taken to reduce the pressure of the gas or vapor in the pipe or part of the plant to atmospheric pressure. And if any such fastening has been loosened or removed, no explosive or inflammable gas or vapor shall be allowed to enter the pipe or part of the plant until the fastening has been secured, or as the case may be, securely replaced, but nothing in this subsection applies to a plant installed in the open air. No plant tank or vessel that contains or has contained any explosive or flammable substance shall be subjected. First, to any welding, brazing, or soldering operation, to any cutting operation that involves the application of heat, to any operation involving the application of the heat for the purpose of taking apart or removing the plant, tank, or vessel, or any part of it until all the practicable steps have been taken to remove the substance and any fumes arising from it, or to render them non-explosive or non-inflammable. If any plant, tank, or vessel has been subjected to any such operation, no explosive or inflammable substance shall be allowed to enter the plant, tank, or vessel until the metal has cooled sufficiently to prevent any risk of igniting the substance. So Section 34, Steam Boilers. No person shall enter or be in any steam boiler that is one of a range of 2 or more steam boilers, unless all inlets through which steam or hot water might otherwise enter the boiler from any other part of the range are disconnected from the part. All valves or tap controlling the entry of steam or hot water are closed and securely locked, and where the boiler has a blow-off pipe, in common with one or more other boilers, or delivering into a common blow-off vessel or sump, the blow-off valve or top on each boiler is so constructed that it can only be opened by a key that cannot be removed until the valve or top is closed, and it's the only key in use for that set of blow-off valve or tops. So Section 63, Removal of Dust or Fumes. In every factory in which, in connection with any process carried on, there is given off any dust or fumes or other impurity of such a character, and to such an extent as to be likely to be injurious or offensive to the other people employed, or any substantial quantity of dust of any kind, all practicable measures shall be taken to protect these people against inhalation of the dust or fumes or other impurity and to prevent its accumulating in any workroom, and, in particular, where the nature of the process makes it practicable, exhaust appliances shall be provided and maintained as near as possible to the point of origin of the dust or fumes or other impurity, so as to prevent it entering the other way or other any workroom. No stationary internal combustion engine shall be used unless provision is made for conducting the exhaust gases from the engine into the open air. The second is so partitioned from any workroom or part of a workroom in which people are employed, other than those attending to the engine, as to prevent any injurious fumes from the engine entering the air of the room or part of the room.